Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stumble Across podcast. This is the podcast where I stumble across someone online, knowing very little about them, and just invite them on for a chat. We take it from there. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the podcast, and to leave a little rating as well. With us being a new podcast, that's what really helps us in the charting situation. Leave a little review, and of course, click the stars as well. Now, in today's episode, the only thing I know about this person, as I described at the very start, is that he lives inside his Land Rover. And when I heard about this, I've kind of, caught this before on YouTube, where there's a few people who have took vans, they strip out the vans, they then turn it into something that they can live in, and they just go traveling. And some for a number of years, just simply living inside the van. But I think this is the first occasion that I've came across someone who has took a car, who's took a Land Rover, and said, you know what, I'm going to change this. I'm going to live inside this Land Rover, and you'll find out the amount of traveling that this guy has actually done. It's just incredible. And another great story that has been found of me just stumbling across someone online. So let's get into today's episode. So here we are, another podcast then, and another guest who I know nothing about. I mean, I literally know a sentence, and that sentence involves a Land Rover. Would you like to introduce yourself, first of all?
Gladly. So first of all, my name, Ludovic Vuillier, but my friends call me Ludo.
And what is this that involves the Land Rover then?
Right. So the Land Rover is a few years ago, I decided to start traveling. Initially, I traveled a bit by sailboat. And then I just decided to get a Land Rover because, they don't really make them the old style anymore that have no electronics in the system and all that. So I decided to get one before they die out, pretty much, because they last forever when you maintain them properly. Mm-hmm. And I spent an entire year just fixing it up. And for the past 2 years, I've been traveling around in it.
So, and when you say traveling around it, you mean solely living in this Land Rover?
Yeah. So since a Land Rover, is smaller, than let's say a big truck like a Ford Transit or whatever, which is what people who do van life supposedly do, right? What I did is I took the rooftop off of the Land Rover, and there's a South African company called Alucab where they make a pop-up tent that you put instead of your roof. And like that, instead of having to climb out and having a roof on top of a tent on top of your roof, it's actually literally a part of the car. So I have access to it from the inside.
Wow.
So I'm standing right now, for example, inside, and I'm standing up, right?
Right, I get you. Yes. So it's a wee bit like a caravan would have that thing that kind of pops up a wee bit, so it allows you to stand up.
Exactly. Here, I'm not very tall, granted, but even if you are very tall, you could stand up with this. And it has, mesh windows on all three sides. So it's really airy. It's really nice. Even when I'm inside, it really feels like I'm still outside camping, which is what I like.
That is incredible, because really, that when you say that whole van life thing, like a lot of people have been doing that. Every time I go on YouTube, there's someone else who's set up a van. They've stripped it out. They've decided they're going to live in it for a year and to see what happens.
And now that's great. Initially, because Land Rovers can be a little bit expensive, right? I wanted to test things out regarding how I like things to be inside on something that's not a Land Rover. So I bought an old school Volkswagen, right? A Volkswagen Transporter. So it's like, it's really nice. Yeah. If you like that, and like that, I was able to test out what I do need inside, what I don't need inside. The thing is, when I was driving around with that, you're limited in where you can go. You can't go off-roading. There are some places where even if it's not off-roading, but just to get to your destination, well, there might be too much mud or there might be sand. Here, I've stayed on a beach. I've stayed in the middle of really a lot of mud on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere in Wales, literally middle of nowhere, just me and the sheep. And I love that. I love that.
You're almost like the real life version of like a Top Gear challenge. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah, where like Jeremy Clarkson would say, right, today we're gonna turn these Jeeps into whatever, and they go off and they do it. and they do the challenges.
Yeah,
Well, but there's so many questions in my head right now, by the way. But
go
one
for
of
it.
the main ones is, how do you decide? So I'm guessing you stripped it out completely.
I mean, to be fair, one of the nice things about Land Rovers, the old school ones, right, is that you can completely take them apart and put it back together again.
And
So
did you go for the
yeah,
whole kind of, you have to have a wee kitchen space? And I'm trying to picture in my head. So do you have like a wee kitchen area inside the Land Rover?
I do, because I. I mean, I know this will sound strange considering, my way of life, right? But I actually do like my creature comforts. I do have a little kitchenette area. I've got a fridge, which is amazing. I have enough battery to, I mean, the alternator charges up the batteries, right?
Hmm.
But even if I don't drive, then I still have about enough batteries for about 2, 3 weeks, right? Which is loads. Um, I've got enough water to last me about 2 weeks. And I've got a lot of storage area, right? Because that's important. But what I was also important was to leave myself enough room to not feel cramped inside. Because some days, for example, right now I'm still in England. I'm going to be here for another week. It's raining outside, or it could be snowing, and I don't really want to be going outside most of the day.
Hmm.
So it's nice to be able to, be inside and not feel completely cramped up.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
where did
yeah.
that kind of idea come from when you were, say, sitting in your house first of all, and you made that step? Like, how did that come about?
Right. So I know this is really, really weird. But as a kid, when we lived in LA, I remember looking at a car one day, and it was a big car.
Mhm.
And I said to my mom, Mom, why, like, why not just live in the car, right? And we were going to the gym daily at that point. I think I had a few extra pounds of fat, and my mom was trying to get me to be a little bit fitter. No, she's not. But no, no, and it's smart. Yeah, I'm not saying that in a bad way. Yeah,
Yeah, of
you don't
course.
want
Yeah.
your kid to be obese. Yeah. Not that I was going anywhere near that, but yeah. And she looked at me, was like, "Well, you've got to live in a house. Like, you can't live in your car." And I remember in my mind, I was like, "Well, why not?" Right. So already as a kid, I had that option of, I had that thing in my mind where, well, I mean, you could, and like that you can just travel around. And initially it was the idea of a sailboat because what? I'm gonna live in a truck, right?
Hmm.
Me being a snob. But a sailboat, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. I live on a boat. Like, that's the ultimate thing you can say. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I did that, and it was awesome. Um, but there is so much to see also that's on land, ultimately. Um, and I don't know, it came together. It came together, and then I heard, and so after I'd made that decision, all of a sudden I'd heard about this van life thing. I was like, right. I mean, it's nice. It's not what I want to be doing. It's not a question of money, by the way. I have a friend who tells me you never know. Somebody with a Land Rover either has tons of money or no money whatsoever,
Mm.
right? Because you can fix them up yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you're a little bit mechanically inclined, you can fix them up yourself. So it's not a question of money, but it's just a question of mindset. With my Land Rover, I can go anywhere I want. You can't do that with a van.
Yeah. That is
So
a
yeah.
fair point. Yeah, to be fair. And when you're there, so do you kind of change your location every night, or do you tend to kind of pick wee spots and you know where you're going, or is it just completely on the fly where you have no idea where you're going to be heading up?
I usually have an idea of what direction I'm going in,
Hmm.
right? The exact spot of where I'm going to go, sometimes I do know in advance, sometimes I have no clue. Or I may decide to go somewhere, I get there and I realize, it's not great. Or maybe on the way there, I found a spot which is absolutely amazing. So I just stopped ahead of time. So I'm very flexible in that
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm. Hmm. And when it comes to, say, just all the wee things that you would take for granted if you live in a house, like food. How does that work?
Right. So two things about food. First of all, I'm a big foodie. I like food, right?
Hmm.
Even like I eat a lot. Always have, and I like it. So I always have enough food for a week easily. And if I stretch it out, I could even do it a week and a half, right? Always enough food for that. I have a little in the kitchen area. I have a little big GPL tank or LPG. I'm never sure. One of them is French, the other is in English. But and there, I cook my meals. But when it's nice, I take that out, and even better, I actually bought a foldable fire pit, so I can cook food on a fire,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? outside, which is really nice
Yeah.
because very different tastes.
Yeah.
So yeah, no food. I have running water here, right? So there's that.
You've
Yeah.
done this all yourself,
God, I would love to say yes.
right?
No, I did a fair amount of it myself,
Mhm.
so I am proud of that. But I also know my limits. Um, so for example, the electrical setup, I did it myself, but with a lot of feedback from a friend of mine who is a genius at it. The water system, I did not do it myself, but I found myself having to fix it afterwards. So I learned a lot about that. Um, I mean, there's the wooden, the actual build inside, which I did along with a friend.
And do
So
you have
yeah.
it all kind of interior designed? Like is it a certain style?
First of all, the build itself is, I guess, an aquamarine blue,
Uh-huh.
with a bit of yellow and a lighter blue up top. So like, it's three different colors there, right? And so that's the inside of the build because aesthetics is important.
And the brighter colors making it seem bigger and all the rest of it. You've thought of it all,
Brighter color, well, first of all, the brighter colors, give you a bit of flash in the eye, so it's not just dark and somber and
mm,
whatnot.
yeah.
um the floor, what I did was I got fake teak, right? So like it's a very thick PVC that's like teak. Imagine it could be on a boat essentially, right?
Huh.
um so it's very comfortable to walk on, but it also cleans fairly easily, and it looks really nice.
And when you were speaking about home comfort, so we've covered food, we've covered the interior. We have to cover
Yes.
the toilet. We have to talk about the toilet.
All right, fair enough. So, and here's one thing. So I'm very much, a nature type of person. Um, Honestly, a good shovel, right? Be smart about, but just go outside.
Yeah.
First of all, there's a certain pleasure in it, and don't get me wrong. I mean, it's possible to get portable toilets and whatnot, yeah. But those usually tend to need a lot of chemicals, which I'm not pro. And I mean, the world is millions of years old. It's very good fertilizer. Obviously, not next to water, not next to you need to be smart. You need to be respectful. But dig it up, half a meter into the ground, you're good.
The other thing I would say is when you spend your first night there. So I'm kind of imagining it's all good in the daytime. You're driving around, but then when it gets to night, so obviously you've made up a kind of a bed there, right?
Oh yeah, the pop-up roof has
Mm-hmm.
a big mattress in there.
Yeah.
So that's where the bed is.
And when all the lights go out, do you not like? Does it get really cold inside that Land Rover?
So I have a diesel heater. And because I've insulated everything so well,
Mm-hmm.
I just heat it up a little bit if need be, right?
Yeah.
And even I have curtains that are insulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the heat stays inside pretty well. And I also have a lot of blankets because it's better to have multiple blankets than just one big one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like having layers of clothes. And honestly, I've never really been, even when it's been snowing outside, I've never really been massively cold inside.
That's incredible. And what do you do as a living, or what did you do as a living, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I don't mind at all. So I actually own a payment processing company, when you use your credit card and all that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's number one. I'm developing two apps, one which is related to travel because obviously.
You're the man for the job. You.
um, that's actually how it started because of a bit of an issue that I had on the way. And another app which is related to animals because I love animals. Actually, I travel with my two birds.
That's a wee bit of company.
It is a wee bit of company.
Hmm.
So there's the cockatiel who's been with me for 11 years.
Uh-huh.
Um, right now, there's a budgie who's been with us just a few months. There's, let's see, there was previously a chicken that I rescued from a
Wow.
farm where it wasn't doing too well there. We had pigeons. There was a quail. So yeah, I like birds.
Pets that are the animals that are with you are the most well-traveled pets. Eh?
Well, I think at this point, I mean, the budgie has only been in England up until now, So next week when we go back to the continent, that will be the first time that she sees another country. But
Hmm.
the cockatiel has been with me to many different countries at this point.
And where has the Land Rover been? Just in England,
The Land Rover has traveled more than me.
right?
Um, but so before I bought it, it had been to 52 different countries.
Wow.
Yeah. Since I've had it, we've been to UK, France, we've been to the Netherlands, we've been through Belgium, but that was just, on the way. We stopped for one night.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so I mean,
You need to bring the Land Rover into Northern Ireland and go round the north coast in Northern Ireland.
I intend to.
Yeah.
So okay, initially I intended because my visa in the UK is limited to 6 months, right?
Uh-huh.
I intended to go to Ireland start well now instead of going back down to the continent.
Hmm.
But then I thought about it, I said to myself, well, it's gonna be a little bit too cold and dreary for me, so I'll come back up in the summer.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. And in summer there's probably only about 2 days where you can get good enough weather to get around to the north coast, if I'm honest. Yeah, and now the other thing is then signal, Wi-Fi, internet, let's be honest, within the UK itself, it's not good.
Horrible. I don't understand. The UK is a first world country, right? How is the infrastructure for mobile reception,
Hmm.
so bad in so much of it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
especially here in Northern Ireland, say you go out, you're in Belfast city centre, it's all right. You go maybe, 40 minutes into the
mhm,
countryside, nothing,
mhm.
nothing.
I yeah. I've had multiple areas like that in the UK. I've actually become very adept at knowing where I will have signal, where I won't.
Mhm.
Um, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hold on, I have to say something about the UK, which I find hilarious. Okay, the train system, right? The rail. Um, so in the summer, you guys shut it down for a few days because it got too hot. And in the winter, there are leaves on the track, so let's not use the trains. What is wrong with you?
Honestly, we can't function. See if we get a wee bit of snow and we know that it's going to snow the next day. We're planning a day off. We're
But
we're planning
and you
not going to
think,
work.
yeah, I mean, wow.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so true. That is so
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
And as for your journey right now, so are you staying in the same place for a week, you say now?
So I am next week. I have a vet appointment because to go back to the continent, then the birdies need their papers, right?
Hmm. Passports?
Um, yeah, exactly. Health certificates and all of that.
Hmm.
So next week we have an appointment with a vet that's licensed for just that. Um, and until then, honestly, I'm in a place right now. It's beautiful. It's near a little stream. You can even paddleboard on it, right? Uh, just me out in nature and
Hmm.
nobody else really.
And I mean, when we were saying about phone signal and all the rest of it, it must be good to know that you don't have phone signal, so you don't have that fear of missing out. You don't have to go on your phone. You just sit in nature.
Okay, so during the weekend, yeah. During the week, though, I do still need to, be available for work
Yeah, of
reasons,
course.
right?
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Especially since right now, I mean, we're crowdfunding the animal app, right?
Uh
So
huh.
I definitely need to be available for any questions that may arise and whatnot.
Tell us about
Yeah,
that app then. What exactly is it?
right. So, you know how you see often. Do you have any dogs or cats or anything?
I have got, yep.
Hamsters,
We
whatever.
have a little indoor house cat. Yep.
There you go. Have you ever lost your cat?
Thankfully not.
Okay, well, and I hope for you that it never happens.
Hopefully,
But
touch wood.
but the truth is that about a third of all animals do get lost at some point in their lifetime,
Hmm.
right? And 80% of them are never found. It's horrible. I
Incredible. Yeah.
mean, anybody who has a pet knows that, I mean, they're part of the family, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so the idea actually came because I realized, I mean, we all have our phones on us all the times. And Americans have this thing called an Amber Alert for kids. When a kid goes missing,
Uh huh.
everybody in the area gets a notification on their phone, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, if immediately when your animal gets lost, if they do get lost, right, you can, with a touch of a button, just alert all the animal lovers in the area, right, with a picture of the animal and all the details and everything, and
Hmm.
the area that it's been lost in, then there's a much higher possibility of your animal actually being found. because otherwise the only option you have is to go into Facebook groups and whatnot and to post on the various groups and hope that the right person will see it on their timeline at the right
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. And I mean,
And
see on the Facebook things, you'll get someone from, say, Belfast sharing something that's from London. It doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't. And imagine you see a dog down the street, you go back home, look at your Facebook, and it's like, oh, damn it, that dog
Yeah.
was a lost dog, right? Well, you're not there anymore. So that's the thing that I've received the best feedback on. Obviously, there are a bunch of other features also, right? But that is the biggest benefit because, I mean, hey, I once, the cockatiel that you can hear in the background right now.
Yeah.
Um,
What's his name? What's his name, by the way?
his name is Lola because we
Lola.
thought it was a female when it was a baby, but
Right.
it's not a female. Yeah.
He's very
but Lola
vocal.
doesn't care.
Very vocal.
Very. Kind of bitching at me right now that like I want to go to sleep. Shut up.
Yeah.
The budgie is sitting quietly, just staring at me. But yeah, no. So I once lost Lola for 36 hours, and I was lucky. But my girlfriend at the time said, let's post on the Facebook, and I told everyone to share, and so one girl shared. And one of her friends saw it on her timeline, and just below that saw that another one of her friends said, "Oh, look, we have a parrot on our boat." Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, but that's pure luck.
Complete luck of the draw. Yeah.
Absolutely. And during those 36 hours when we didn't have her, I mean, I was absolutely heartbroken. So that's how the idea came about. And since right now, I mean, look, I love what I do in payment processing. I'm not going to complain. Yeah. And I'm lucky I can do it from anywhere.
Yeah.
But my heart really is with anything related to animals and travel.
It sounds like a brilliant idea.
Right.
Like, I don't know why that is not a thing already.
I don't know.
No.
Yeah. So, the day that I don't need to work, daily and all that I don't need to be connected daily. Don't get me wrong. I will gladly just disconnect from the world and that's it. Yeah. For now though, I'm still available many hours of the day.
That's incredible. That's it's one of those stories you always read, but you never speak to those people. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, yeah, incredible, really, really good. What is your next thing? Do you have another kind of project in mind?
No, honestly, look, the world is big, right? There are so many places in the world that I want to discover. So my intention is to continue with the Land Rover for a good many years. First of all, finish up Europe, then do all of the Asian side, like Mongolia, Russia, and whatnot. Then maybe Africa, and then there are the Americas, right?
A question we love to ask when we're talking about cars: how many miles is on it?
So hold on, I know the kilometers. Let me convert that 1 second. The car is about 280,000 miles. Wow. But it's a Land Rover. It's a 300 Ti. So
it's just breaking in.
It will, but that thing, no electronics. So essentially, as long as you maintain it properly, it could last forever.
Yeah.
Change some parts, when they get too tired. But the car itself, overall, could last forever.
Incredible. You'll have to pop a wee picture across on email to let me have a look at it. But it's
yeah, gladly.
It's a very, very good story, and thanks so much for coming on.
No, gladly. Thank you for having me.